So we're going to start with The Guardian, which I have here. And this is the headline that Sunak lied to the country over Labour tax and spend plans. So says Keir Starmer. Now, for Keir Starmer to use the word lie about Rishi Sunak, that's pretty strong from him. Krista, what do you make of this story?
I think that they're both not telling the truth. That's what I think. I think that the Institute for, well, I don't think this, I know, Institute for Fiscal Studies, I think backed by the Resolution Foundation, has said that both of the major parties have made tax commitments that do not tally with the commitments they've made over spending as well. Both parties aren't being honest about the black hole that they will face in their finances. And so I think it's a pretty poor choice for all of us, actually, because we're probably going to end up with higher taxes with both parties, and both parties aren't telling the truth. So I don't think Starmer can take the moral high ground either, but that doesn't forgive Sunak either.
Tessa, what do you make of it? I mean, Chris is right in saying that the IFS have said that if everybody is committed to these rules, the fiscal rules of we're not going to borrow more, we're not going to raise taxes, but we're going to spend more on your services, well, the money's got to come from somewhere. So they're going to have to find money. Labour and the Conservatives are saying they're going to find money by getting rid of the non-dom scheme, for example, that's going to bring in money. Labour are being honest in saying that they're going to raise taxes when it comes to putting VAT on schools,
I'm fond of you because you're wonderfully earnest and you genuinely care. But for the majority of people, halfway through your first sentence, they've zoned out.
Do you think they've fallen asleep?
Yeah, they've absolutely zoned out.
Hello? Anyone listening?
It's all right.
Hello?
Save the day. Dial in now. But the truth is, this is about electioneering. It's about landing a blow on your opponent. Yeah. Neither of them are well equipped to do that. They're two little technocrats. I mean, if they weren't right now running to be leader of this country, would they even make the grade to be a contributor on this show? And it's a pretty low bar. You know, that is how dull they are.
Tessa.
Dull as dishwater, quote unquote. That was the polling guy that called them that. So the point is, in terms of electioneering, Rishi Sunak landed the more adept punch, because he got this trending in the headlines. What? It was like he discombobulated.
Has he, though?
Starmer.
If the day after you've landed your punch, you've got the head of the Treasury saying you shouldn't have used that figure. We've already sent you a letter saying that you shouldn't use that figure. Also, that figure is quite misleading in the sense that when you say Labour are going to put up your taxes by £2,000, that's over the course of 4 years, so that's £500
but again,
a
Alex,
year.
You're digging around in the detail. Do you not remember?
But does accountability and honesty not count? And that's for all parties. I'm talking about every single leader.
I mean, of course it does, but we're never going to get it. We're never going to get it.
But isn't that a sad state of affairs?
Absolutely.
If we're all sort of saying, well, we're never going to get it, therefore we shouldn't care?
I know, I'm not saying we shouldn't care. I'm saying that it's just such a sad...
Tessa says he's landed a punch. Well done for him.
No, I didn't say well done
politics.
for him, but I'm saying, do you not remember the first time that Sadiq Khan ran for London Mayor and it was, my dad was a bus driver, and you went away thinking, oh, his dad was a bus driver. It was like, one message, that's what we can manage. We're all busy doing our lives. What's the mood music? What are taxes under Labour going? What's that? Apparently Rishi Sunak might have, made a bit of a fib. Well, that's standard. Look, Christo says it's standard. But under Labour, higher taxes. In the end, it's about slugging out. It's the big punches. That's why you're not a politician. That's why you're here grafting around in the small print. It's all right. Roll for everyone.
Sadiq Khan, should we talk about the ULEZ now?
Oh,
we
no,
talk about
please.
the ultra-low emission zone.
No.
You've done my trigger word now.
He was the son of a bus driver.
Right.
He's done ever so well.
I think we need to move on. Tessa, there's a story on page 14 of the Daily Mail about Labour's proposals to lower voting age to 16.
Yeah, bring it on, eh? Bring it on. I mean, I'm sorry. I think it's, how else do you expect young people to engage? We have lots of hand-wringing about why people aren't going to vote, the apathy of the younger generation. They don't even know what D-Day is. Is it a milkshake? And here we are suggesting, in line with Keir Starmer, that we engage them early. When they're in school, when they're sponges, when they're ready to learn, when actually they're voting for the reality that they're going to experience, because huge electoral issues around tertiary education, around apprenticeships, around national conscription, stuff that will directly land in their laps, not in their granny's lap, and we're saying they don't have a right to have a say, it's poppycock.
But that's because they're not adults. You're not tried as an adult in law.
16, you can have sex and you can pay taxes. What more do I need to prove that I'm an adult?
Well, a lot more, I would suggest, because I think that you can't actually get married without your parents' permission. You can't be tried as an adult in law. So is it that you're ready? If you're going to change all of it, and you're an adult at 16. If you're not an adult at 16, then you're not an adult at 16.
OK, but Keir Starmer, for example, is saying that if you can work and pay taxes at 16, which you can do, then you should have the right to vote.
But paying taxes is not the benchmark for being an adult. If it was, then once I've paid tax, I could murder someone and be tried as an adult. I'm sorry, you can't...
Being an adult...
There's being
in
an
your
adult.
mind...
Becoming a murderer.
Becoming a murderer and having to go to court.
It's about at what age society sees you as an adult. Now, if we're going to change the whole of that and say, right, at 16, you are legally now an adult in every single sense, then fine, give 16-year-olds the vote. But there is an inconsistency between...
Mr.
What?
You're being a little bit disingenuous.
No.
Because we know there are shades of grey. You've got driving, you've got whether you can go into the army, you've got whether you can get married, whether you can have sex. It's not suddenly one day I wake up, age 16, and I'm an adult.
Well, I would probably raise the driving age to 18 if it was me.
I am suggesting that voting, not nearly as lethal as driving, incidentally. I can't take someone else's life when I put a cross in a box. And actually, it's appropriate that young, engaged individuals have a say about their future.
Well, that was...
What concerns you about this? I mean, this is a poll conducted by Lord Ashcroft, we should say, for the Daily Mail. There's a lot in that poll.
There's a partial poll.
Well, there's a lot in that poll. More than half, 57% of 18 to 24-year-olds, for example, do back the proposals to lower the voting age, compared with only 1 in 5 of over 65. So there shouldn't be a great surprise there. Older people don't want the younger people to vote, and the younger people do want younger people to get the vote. But what concerns you about 16-year-olds having the vote? Are you thinking that they're not engaged enough or educated enough?
It's the inconsistency, it's the hypocrisy. I mean,
forget the law. What bothers you about giving a 16-year-old person the vote?
Yeah. What bothers me is that they're not an adult in the eyes of the law. It is about the law. I'm sorry, it is about the law. And also...
But they are in some respects. I've just explained.
But then we need to be more consistent. I don't even think you can buy cigarettes at 16 now, can you?
I hope not, because they end up killing you. But last time I checked, voting doesn't.
So I can't buy a packet of cigarettes, but I can vote for the next government.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
completely...
I'm 100%
You can vote for them to allow you to buy a pack of cigarettes.
No, well, then you can when you're 18.
I think there's a bigger point, which is that you are much less likely to vote if you're young. So we have an intergenerational gap where we're disproportionately stacking up policies for old people because we know they're more likely to vote. Therefore, by lowering the age, you're actually helping to redress that problem. And it is a problem. We saw Rishi Sunak say, we're going to give pensioners more money. At the moment, we've got 6 out of 10 women, when they have an abortion at the moment, cite it for financial reasons. We can't afford to have children. Our birth rate's plummeted to 1.49 children per woman because we can't afford to have children. All our primary schools are emptying. And, we're going to give old people more money.
16-year-olds to vote is going to solve all of that.
Yeah, because actually 16-year-olds are looking, and young people more generally, this is about engaging young people so that we actually create policies that benefit them in their lives.
Is there concern, Christo, of, for example, it is a bit of a cliche, but cliches tend to sort of be based on some reality that younger people tend to be more liberal and perhaps vote less conservative. And this is not all young people, of course.
No, but
is there cynicism here, do you think, from the Labour's point of view that, we're going to open the vote to younger people so we sort of allow more of our base to vote? Is that what you think's going on?
That's precisely why Labour are doing it. But I don't care what you vote when you reach 18. That is precisely why Labour is doing it, without a doubt. But it's also precisely why the Tories throw away loads of money to pensioners. What they're doing is they're pandering to their base.
So you agree? Did you hear that? In the back door, you've just changed your mind, really.
No, I haven't changed my mind because I said I don't care what you vote when you're 18. What I'm saying is the reason Labour want to do this is because they think they'll get more votes.
But what you must...
But I don't care what you vote.
But surely you'll concede, Christo, that if you broaden your young base, given it's harder to get young people to vote because they're more chaotic, they're not going to be on the electoral register, etc. If you broaden that base by lowering the age to 16, you will have a redress in the balance of policies which always stacks in favour of the elderly because the grey vote turns out.
Yes, but that's when the Conservatives are in power. When Labour are in power, perhaps that will happen.
That's actually
that's
not
absolutely true.
No, because the majority of voters are older, and therefore Labour also is too frightened to touch the triple lock, too frightened to touch inheritance tax.
The reason that we're having an election in July and not in October or November is because of older voters, and that's because the Conservatives are doing it that way.
No, the voting, for every millimetre of rain, 0.95% drop in those who turn out to vote.
Yeah, but they haven't accounted for a British summer, so there we go. It's, on Sky News, Christo, this is yet another poll.
Yes, and this is the Farage effect, I think. Reform UK has now apparently, according to the YouGov poll, moved within 2 points of the Conservatives. So this was a survey conducted on Monday and Tuesday. This was before the head-to-head debate between Sunak and Starmer. Labour on 40%, the Tories on 19%, Reform UK now on 17%. And that's a survey of 2,144 adults online. I think it's the Farage effect. Whether you love or loathe Nigel Farage, and there's a lot to say about both of those points of view, he does get the headlines. And I think that from the point of view of a electoral strategy perspective of reform, whether, again, you agree with them or not, putting Farage as leader was, I think, a very politically savvy move on their behalf.
We should say that there was a different methodology used on this poll, which is why, compared to a recent poll, again, that was done, we've seen that sort of shift. Labour are down 6, Lib Dems are up 2, Reform is up 2, the Conservatives are down 2. So, and again, we should always remember and remind people that these polls are just a snapshot of that very moment. They're not a predictor, but it's just a snapshot.
But also we know, because we have the first past the post system, that actually the number of votes you get nationally doesn't rack up to the number of seats you're going to win in Parliament, which is why you see so much voter apathy. Because you might be passionately Lib Dem or Reform or Green, and it ain't necessarily going to translate into an MP.
But does this change, do either of you think that this changes what the Conservatives do between now and polling day? Because obviously, if you have Reform snapping at your heels, does that mean we're going to see different policies come out? Does that mean that the manifesto, someone's manically rewriting the Conservative manifesto, thinking, well, we have to appeal to some of those Reform voters?
But we've seen this time and time again with Farage. You know, people go back, the Versailles Republic, that's why we don't have proportional representation, because the likes of UKIP or Reform would come into the House of Commons and, somehow take over this extreme wing. But they were the tail that wagged the dog with Brexit, and we're seeing him do the exact same again, which is why the Tories have launched to the right, and the talk at the moment is leaving the European Court of Human Rights. Look at Rishi Sunak pitching as hard as he can to the right and dragging Labour with him.
I think that we've already seen that happen. I think that's fair. I think some of the policies of reform, I think that national service policy was originally a reform policy. But you're very right to point out that this survey, and it's whether the Tories believe it, does account for modelling the don't knows. Yeah. And the last survey that came out, remember there was a survey recently that put the Tories just 10% behind Labour or 12% behind, much closer. That was also based on the methodology of modelling the don't knows and modelling the people who are apathetic. So we should factor that in.
How old is Farage? Just out of interest, I wonder how old he is.
You've got me there. I think he must be in his early 60s.
I think he's looking quite fresh. I'm wondering if he hasn't had a little talk for the election. It's just a thought. It's just a thought.
I'll let you wonder about that.
Yeah.
I don't think he went to Europe for it.
Right. Let's move on.